Serging corners can be so tricky. Inside corners want to bunch up, and outside corners look choppy. And sometimes it feels like no matter what you do, they just won't turn out right. But after teaching thousands of sewists over the past 2 decades, I have honed in on the 3 best tips to make serging corners flawless and stress-free. Hi Sewing Bees, I'm Sookie, and today I'm going to show you how to serge perfect corners, both inside and out, like a pro. So grab your serger and let's tackle corners together. Before we get to corners, let's talk about what makes corners different from other serger techniques. In other videos, I've covered curves, achieving perfect seam allowance, and how to finish your thread tails. But corners add an extra challenge because you're changing direction mid-stitch. The good news is, with the right approach, it's completely doable. And by the way, if you haven't checked out those other videos yet, I'll include a link in the description to my Year of the Serger page on my website. This way you can find everything in one convenient location. Corners take a little more prep than straight seams, but trust me, these quick steps will make a huge difference in your results. And just so that we're all on the same page, I'll be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance for these tips, and I'll be demonstrating with 90-degree corners. But keep in mind, if it's not a straight seam and it's not a curve, then it's considered a corner. Now, as you gain experience, you also might find that you don't always need to take these extra steps. But I will tell you this, I know plenty of serger queen bees who have been serging for 30 plus years, and they still swear by these tips. So whether you're a new serger bee and just starting out your journey, or you've been at it for a while, these will definitely help. All right, let's get everything prepped and cover the 3 tips. I call them the pivot plan, snip, snip, smooth, and fine tune for success. First up is the pivot plan, which is all about marking your corners. A simple marking step can save you so much frustration. So grab a fabric marking pen or pencil and make those pivot points visible. For both marks, I like to extend the line that's going to be far beyond the presser foot. So that way you can see them easy while you're stitching. For inside corners, draw a 45-degree angle line from the inner point. Think of this mark as a roadmap. It tells you exactly where to sink the needle before changing directions. For outside corners, place a mark about a 1/4 inch before the edge so you know when to slow down and prepare for the turn. Since we're talking about pivoting, let's talk about 2 helpful serger features. If your serger has a knee lift, use it. It allows you to raise the presser foot hands-free, giving you better control while repositioning your fabric. However, I did notice that lifting the presser foot manually allowed the tension to be fully released. But give it a try. And if your machine has a needle up, needle down function, turn it on. This feature keeps your fabric stable every time you stop to pivot. The serger I'm demonstrating with today does not have a dedicated button for this, but I can still raise or lower the needle by tapping the back of my foot pedal with my heel. If your serger has these features, give them a try. The second is the snip, snip, smooth. Basically, a little trim can go a long way in getting smooth, clean corners. For inside corners, make a tiny 1/8 inch snip right at the corner. This allows the fabric to spread out as you stitch, helping to prevent puckering. If you're working with an outside corner on bulky fabrics, you might find trimming a small diagonal notch off the tip helps. It basically just removes bulk off the corner, but also works nicely with working with thicker decorative threads. But please test this one out with the exact materials and threads before cutting corners on the real deal. And by the way, now would be a great time to keep track of these tips. So feel free to download my Hello Serger mini handbook. It's a free guide with serger basics and plenty of space to write down important details. You'll find the link in the description. And the last tip is fine tune for success, because when it comes to corners, control is everything. Instead of relying solely on your foot pedal at full speed ahead, slow down and use your hand wheel to manually walk the needles into place when you get close to your pivot points. This gives you the fine-tuned accuracy that you need to stop exactly where you want. And here's a pro move. Grab your precision angled tweezers. These are a game changer for guiding fabric and threads, exactly where you need them to go, especially around tricky outside corners. So now that you've got these 3 tips under your belt, it's time to put them into action. Let's begin with the outside corners. First, let's follow the pivot plan and mark the 1/4 inch seam allowance at the end of each seam. And speaking of seam allowances, keep in mind your seam allowance. Remember, I said I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which means I'm basically just barely cutting the fabric. In fact, it's more like I'm giving my raw edges a haircut with the blade. Continue serging until you reach the end of the fabric. Then, turn the hand wheel 1 full rotation until the needles are back in the up position and completely off the fabric. Raise the presser foot. Remember the fine tune for success? Now it's time to use your tweezers to gently pull the needle threads in front of the needles, creating a little slack for a smooth restart. And gently pull the fabric straight back to remove it and the threads off the stitch fingers. Turn your fabric 90 degrees to align the next edge for stitching. The raw edge should be aligned with the presser foot, just to the left of the blade. And your finished serged edge should be perpendicular to the presser foot. Sink the needles into the very tip of the corner. Lower the presser foot and turn the hand wheel for a few stitches to secure the fabric. Keep the raw edge straight, and whatever amount you're trimming, stay consistent. If you're giving your edge a haircut, make sure to keep it even all the way through. And they say practice makes perfect, so let's do this a couple of more times around outside corners. As you stitch towards the outside corner, prepare for the turn. And probably by your 3rd corner, you're going to have it down pat. Way to go, Serger bees. I know you're learning a lot, so pat yourself on the back. And now that you are an outside corner pro, let's move on to the inside corners and apply a couple of those techniques. As mentioned in the Snip Snip Smooth, make an 1/8 of an inch snip at the inside corner. This small clip helps the fabric lay flat as you stitch. Let's begin at an outside corner. As you stitch towards the inside corner, a small pleat will naturally form in the fabric towards the left of the needles. So what we're going to do is create a purposeful pleat that's going to face towards you. Do your best to keep the raw edges nice and straight. And just before the needles reach the inside corner, sink them into the fabric. Now raise the presser foot and carefully reposition the pleat so the fold is now facing towards the back of the machine. Lower your presser foot. Turn the hand wheel towards you to sink the needles for a couple of stitches. Smooth out the fabric and make sure the raw edges continue to be straight, making sure no permanent pleats are forming. Then continue serging as usual. You'll see that the fabric stays smooth with no unwanted pleats at the inside corner. But if any do show up, don't worry, most of the time they can easily be steamed or pressed out. And just for good measure, let's try this one more time. With these tips and a little practice, you'll be getting pro-level corners every time, inside or out. Now, if you want to learn 5 great ways to finish your thread tails, be sure to check out this video right here. And until I see you next time, I hope you have a creative day. Bye-bye.